What's the pay for a senior vice president?
I have seen organizations that start folks off at this level at anywhere between $175. I'm saying $175, but I mean 175,000 to as high as 250 on base. And then building in some commission structures. I know a couple of folks in, 450, half a mil. It really isn't always about the money. Not to say that the green doesn't make sense. I mean, we want to know about the money too. We want to secure the bag, but also in securing the bag means, what type of equity play is involved and how does it benefit you?
Yeah, that's important. I mean, if you get the right equity play with a company like Gig Wage, I mean, you're talking about securing the bag that y'all get that $1 billion evaluation. That's going to be a nice bag you got over there, Brandi. And I mean, Craig going to be sitting nice too. So
Just rain all over me.
nice.
Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the pod. I'm here with Andrew Baines and myself, Eliseo Iglesias, and this is Custom Journeys. Please subscribe to us to our YouTube channel on youtube.com and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts as well as Google Play. Additionally, please follow us on our IG at Custom Journeys. That's spelled CUSTEM Journeys. We're here today with a fabulous guest. We're looking forward to learning from her and hearing from her today. Her name is Brandi Utria, and she is the Senior Vice President of Business Development at Gig Wage. She has many years of experience in upper management in a variety of leadership roles, including, but not exclusive to, business development and sales. She has a Bachelor's of Education in Special Education from North Central College. Let's welcome Brandi Utria. Thank you, Brandi, for being here today.
Thank you, gentlemen. And you get gold stars for the pronunciation of the last name. I have to tell you, I appreciate that.
No problem. I can roll my R's.
Oh, yeah. It certainly isn't Johnson in terms of a last name, right? I get it. So, awesome. Thank you so much for that. Amazing introduction.
Thank you.
Yeah. I couldn't do it. I listened to the LinkedIn dictation or enunciation of it. I'm glad you have that on your LinkedIn profile, by the way. But I'm thankful that Eli is so talented because I would have failed that one. But thanks again, Brandi. Just to echo Eli's comments, we really appreciate you taking time out your day to be here with us. Really looking forward to chat with you. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna kick it off with a softball question. Give you a chance to spotlight Gig Wage a lot and talk about some of the great things that you do. Exactly right. So for the people that don't know, what is Gig Wage and what kind of separates you guys from your competitors that are out there?
So at Gig Wage, we offer payroll processing for the gig economy in its most basic terms, right? But we're far from basic. No one wants to be basic, and we're far from that. What separates us really from the competition, if you could really say we had any, because we really are the only organization to date that is hyper-focused and totally offers like a all-encompassing solution for the company and the independent contractors, gig workers, freelancers, however you want to title them, that they partner with, right? So we offer payroll, we offer banking, and we offer payments. And when on the payment front, like we offer payment optionality that gives a company that partners with an independent contractor a bevy of opportunities to manage how, when, and how quickly they want to pay the independent contractor. So we have what is known as instant payments, where, if I worked for Benny's Beverage Depot and I had made a drop to your home of some adult spirits, and I had decided that at the end of the day, that was going to be the last drop of the day for me, and I was going to end my day, and I was owed $67.04. I could, in a moment's notice, request those funds of $67.04. And in doing so, as long as I've linked a MasterCard or Visa logo debit card to my Gig Wage account, I would receive those funds instantly. Like, it's mind-blowing. And quite frankly, for a lot of gig workers out there, that really is the difference between them being able to put food in the car, on the table, gas in their car, or being able to move on with the remainder of their shift or day because they have access to funds. And then most importantly, from a social impact piece, and really one of the reasons why I decided to join the gig wage team about 5.5 months ago was that there's really a matter of caring for community, right? At work here. So we have a slogan where we lead with empathy, right? And so in doing so, offering the instant payment or the optionality to pay someone sooner rather than your traditional weekly or bi-weekly payroll frequency, you're allowing them access to cash, right? In the moment. That prevents them from falling prey to predatory lending practices by title loan companies or getting a payday loan where there's this cyclical event that they can oftentimes never get out of because of these exorbitant interest rates that are tacked on to these loans. And so that's where we can kind of come in and help to really improve someone's financial journey by offering instant payments.
That's awesome. I'm glad you guys do that. So I'm not a freelancer or a full-time entrepreneur yet. Hopefully next year,
Okay.
that'll be a thing I can say I'm officially doing. But I am familiar with like net 30 or net 60 and all that. So I
Right.
mean, I can only imagine like the amount of financial stress people are under when they're waiting 30 to 60 days to get their money from people, and they're like, "Yo, I got kids I got to take care of, and I got to pay for."
Mm-hmm.
XYZ, the mortgages due. So I'm glad that your company is really focusing on, doing instant payments or getting those payments in the hands of the freelancers or entrepreneurs a lot quicker, especially with everybody, making the switch towards a more gig economy where like
Right.
everybody nowadays has a side hustle. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad to see that you guys have such a great mission behind your company that you're starting.
Yeah, that's the great thing about the gig economy and gig work, right? It has this cross-generational appeal. Everyone from baby boomers to Gen Zers are getting in on the action because I think if nothing else, the pandemic kind of showed everyone that, you know, circumstances can change in the blink of an eye, right? We were all a witness to that. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
companies had to furlough people, let folks go, and you had a pool of folks who were looking around like, so how do I take care of my family? How do I continue to keep a roof over my head? And then the go-to is gig work, right? And so you get to determine when you work, how long you work, where you work, and for anyone that uses gig wage, you can determine how quickly you are paid and where your funds make it to in order for you to obtain them. So, hurrah to gig economy, and it's on the rise. It's here to stay, and I'm just grateful to be part of a company that recognized that long ago. The visionary that is I like to call him El Jefe, Craig J. Lewis, that had the vision for this organization, and we're so excited as a team to help him see that vision come to life.
That's great. So now I really want to get into so what caught my attention with you, or let's start from the beginning. I reached out to Craig on IG. Surprisingly, Craig responded, and I was surprised that he even did that. I thought that was really dope. But I was looking for Black and Latino STEM professionals, tech people in the tech field like you and Craig, that we could potentially interview. And when I heard about you, looked up your LinkedIn profile, I was pretty interested. Because on there, it was like, yo, you had a bachelor's in special education, and your current job is a senior vice president of a tech startup. So I'm like, yo, we got to talk about how you went from special education to senior vice president of development. So I'd love to hear like your story. You don't have to give us like the true origin story about like back in elementary school, I knew I was going to be VP of something because of whatever.
Yeah.
But it may be like maybe starting college and then kind of walk us through that journey of like going from college all the way to where you're at today as a senior vice president.
Yeah. So I was working, no pun intended, a summer gig
Mm-hmm.
and as a gopher for a medical sales company. And so I was basically the one that would help the receptionist out by answering phones, getting lunch for all the sales reps. And one day, the vice president's wife, who worked for the organization, stopped and we had a conversation. And she said, your name is ringing bells. And what is your plan post school? And I was like, well, I come from a long line of teachers. That is what I intend to do. And she said, well, have you ever just, thought about sales? And I was like, sales? I'm sorry, what do you mean sales? I don't understand what's happening here. And she said, I really think you have a future in this. And I am going to talk to Ed, who was the vice president of the durable medical equipment company that I was working for temporarily. And I think we need to have a sit down. And so I went home. I thought nothing of it. A week passed and I get a call. She circled back around and a meeting was had. And once I learned like what the life of a medical sales rep looked like, I was sold. Yep, I was sold. Lock, stock, and barrel. I had an opportunity to talk to some of the regional managers that were working in the office. And, I'd see them come in every day and driving their Mercedes Benz and wearing Rolex watches and, having long days, but days that were productive. And so I got into durable medical sales. We're talking late 80s now, where there were unlimited budgets that you had. Comp packages were amazing. And it was a whole lot of fun. Company was acquired by an entity in Northridge, California. We were building a home. I was married with a child, couldn't move, fell into payroll sales. Did that for a number of years. That was amazing. Got my start at a small company. You may have heard of it, Paylocity. And Steve Sirowitz gave me my first start in payroll. And from there, things just kind of took off. I worked there for a while. I wanted to get into larger accounts as a salesperson, crushed some goals that I was given and really wanted to taste an enterprise deal and start working on the enterprise side. And then found my way eventually to a financial services company, a national financial services company. And I worked there for 13 and a half years. Started off entry-level salesperson, worked my way through 4 promotions in total. I was part of the first go-to-market team that they had. It was myself and 2 other gentlemen. We covered a third of the country. And the athlete that I've been all my life, very competitive, I just wanted to smoke them. And so I learned the ropes quickly. I had a payroll background that helped. And through the work that I did, dedication and passion and putting in long hours, I eventually made my way to vice president of one of the subsidiaries, and then also director of business development. 2019, we had a catastrophic event that basically crippled the company. Rather than close the doors, I asked my then CEO, let me help you. If this is the end of your legacy in the payroll space, as opposed to you just laying down and dying, if you will, let me help you through the contacts I have in this industry and get you acquirers for the remaining 3 entities. So in that moment, I immediately became like VP, business development, and then also Madam Chairwoman of mergers and acquisitions. And while that had been on my radar in working M&A, we had conversations before this catastrophic event happened. I was to lead the charge on that eventually. In that moment, it was my time. And so I found acquirers for the remaining 3 entities. The last deal that was done, I went along with that deal and ended up at Assure Software and HCM, which is a publicly held, well-known and recognized payroll organization. It was there for about 10, 11 months. And then Craig J. Lewis sent me a text about 11:45 one night and said, hey, I need a go-to-market team. I'm building it out. Are you ready to come over? And he and I have known each other for like 12 years. So I had seen the evolution of gig wage over the years. And we always stayed connected. And I was pretty darn impressed with what he was building. And being a loyalist and had been with the previous company for 13 and a half years, he's always teased me, you'll never leave. I was forced to leave by way of that disaster that occurred, and then moved somewhere else. But for some reason, it just felt right. And I went with my gut and I made the move this past May. And here I am.
Awesome. That's amazing. A lot of things that I really have a lot of questions from that conversation just now. So I could definitely see like you a hunter, you're a go getter. I mean, I can see that nature, and I can hear it in your story, and I love that about you. Also, you mentioned that you had you were married and you had a child at the time, and I know we've talked before, and you said you had a daughter. You have a daughter. Can you talk to the challenges of like having a kid and trying to work your way up through that corporate ladder? Because I know a lot of moms feel that mom guilt of like,
Yeah.
yo, I want to have this career. I'm talented. You're obviously talented, but at the same time, you want to be there for your baby. I have two babies. You can kind of see them over my corner,
Yeah.
and a wife. So I hear my wife having those challenges as well. So can you kind of speak to those challenges, and then how do you kind of deal with that over time?
Yeah, so the backstory is that my former spouse and I, we were very young parents. I was 17 when my daughter was born. He was just nearing 20. He was in college. I was on my way. And so, what we had, number one, was an amazing support system. My husband, as I affectionately call him, he is Cuban descent, huge family. They My mother-in-law took a leave of absence from her job for a year and a half. My father-in-law was still alive at the time. My former spouse's abuela, grandmother, was in the home. So they refused to allow us to let her go to daycare. We had round the clock care so that we could finish our studies. We could create a path for ourselves so that we can build our own family. And that was a blessing in and of itself. Now, mind you, I spent every bit of 230 plus days on the road from the time that she was in third grade until she graduated high school. And so I clearly remember, like, senior year, there was, honor society events. I'm flying in for that. There's graduation. I'm flying in for 2 days to get her squared away for graduation and prom, and I'm flying out the next day because I don't want to miss these moments, right? Because we only get them once. But I also understand that the path that I'm looking to lay the foundation is not really only for me in this moment now. It's really about her. It's really about creating an example for her that you can be a mom and you can also have a career. You can be a mom and a wife, and you can always have lofty goals and wanting to achieve things, right? You don't have to have one or the other. And I understand that there are women that will choose one over the other, motherhood and set career aside. At our age, still in our very young 20s and late 30s and stuff, by the time she graduated high school, we were still in a place where we just really wanted to create, in me particularly, a name for myself in this industry. And that made me feel whole as a woman first, being a mother and a wife, and then also having a career. And then, to be perfectly honest, I became pregnant with my daughter in the early 90s, where teenage pregnancy was absolutely frowned upon, but it was on the rise at the same time. I was from a middle class upbringing. My family had some really deeply rooted ties to the community, from the church to public officials. They knew everyone and everyone knew them. So when I became pregnant, I think that I took on this idea that I brought shame to my family, and there were a lot of naysayers. And one thing I would never, ever let anyone do is tell me I can't achieve certain things. And so that is what also fueled me. That for everyone that said that, oh, she's had a baby and she's only 17, she'll be just like the rest of them, like just write me off completely. Well, it was in that moment, little did they know, the naysayers, that it only fueled me, my desire to rise above my circumstances.
Nice. What sport did you play? You sound like a former athlete. That was like
Soccer, cross country. I was a
okay.
gymnast for many years. Debate club, which I loved, and a cheerleader. So I did it all. Only thing I didn't do is play basketball because I'm way too hacky. I'm very aggressive. So like that was a no-go for me. I
All
wanted
right.
to, but it wasn't in the cards. And I stand at 5'3". So then there's that. Really 5 2 3/4, but who's counting? Yeah.
Gotcha. You got something, Eli?
Nah, no, that's okay because I believe Andrew was undersized quarterback back in the day.
Average. I'll say average height.
Oh, okay, average height. Okay, 5'6" quarterback. It's okay. I'm cut from a short
Vertically
people.
challenged. It's just what it is. Right. Yeah. Some of us are just vertically challenged. We have
Exactly.
other gifts. Right.
That's what it
Tenacity.
is.
Tenacity is one. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. So I wanted to, Brandy. By the way, that's amazing. An amazing story. I grew up in a single parent household, and a lot of the things you said really resonated with me. And so there's a
Yeah.
lot of people out there that are going to resonate with that what you just said, especially the people that are trying to bring up kids and go to school as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
So you had a really long career at the previous payroll processing company in the sales role. You thought you were gonna like live and die there. That was gonna be like your legacy, so to
Yeah.
speak. But fortunately enough, Craig saw your talent and he was like, "Yo, you got to join our team."
Yeah.
I love that. Can you, since you've worked at both like, or since you're now at a startup tech company and you've worked at medical sales and other
Yeah.
sales companies, can you talk about like the differences in terms of like the pros and cons of working for a tech startup versus like a more legacy company or a bigger, more traditional company?
Yeah. So the difference straight away, I can say, like I've been making the comment to colleagues and stuff that a week at gig wage feels like a month, and a month feels like a year because you are moving at warp speed all the time. Like there's so much to be done, and this is my first stint ever working for a startup. I've never done it before, so as you mentioned, those legacy companies been around 20 and 30 years plus. That had been my only experience, really. And so, what you have with most legacy companies, and mind you, I'll preface this next statement by saying my former life was very good to me in providing me experience and opportunity and a chance and to make a very nice living for myself. But the challenges oftentimes are the technology might be a little dated. Internal resources might be scarce, so integration projects go on and on and on or never happen, right? There's often that time where you've got this square box, and every and all things that you do must fit inside that square box. There's usually no deviating from this. Um, and so I would say those are some of the cons that I've experienced personally in working for a more legacy, long standing company is that there's a slower move to change. And you often time hear the status quo of, well, we just do things that way. What I've experienced in 5.5 months here at Gig Wage is that a startup, fast pace, there's also this nimbleness, right? This flexibility that you have, and this pliability, if that's a word, that you experience here, and that challenges don't linger for long. People get to solutioning rather quickly. And that was important to me in the role that I am in. A lot of partnerships that I bring on include integrations of our technology to the partners, or two-way, so it can be bi-directional, whatever the case may be. Folks rise to the occasion quickly. And there is a all hands on deck kind of mentality here, which is different for me as well. While we had a little bit of that in my former life, we did a lot of things as managers and executive leadership somewhat siloed, and communication was always a challenge, right? Which I think all companies, no matter what, startup or existing longstanding organizations, have a similar issue. But I noticed that communication is very big here, and it positions me to do my job that much better every day. And you're encouraged to ask questions where in the beginning I may have been a little bit timid because this is all a change for me, right? And so I'd say that those are the pros of working for a startup. The only con that I can think of, and this is all about me and less about the org, is that there are aspects of it that are new to me. I'm learning a new product, I'm being educated on us as an organization as a whole. I'm 5.5 months in. Yeah, I consider myself a quick study, but there's also a matter of really getting a lay of the land and really being able to tell the gig wage story as well as our founder does. I'll never be able to tell it as good as he can, but at least because it's his story, right? He was there from inception to today. But I want to be able to get to a place where it becomes quite natural to me, all things gig wage, and I'll get there in time. So that's been the only drawback for me, is just getting to a place where I feel like I have my rhythm, and I'm about there now. Like light bulbs are going off all over the place now. And it's just been a matter of just learning something new, and the pace I can manage. But I am a bit of an old bird too. So like, one might get tired every now and again from a very long work week. That's all I'm saying.
I gotcha. Hey, so for people who are interested, I love the whole tech startup scene, like all the innovation that's coming out of it. For people that maybe they have a similar story to you in terms of like they've amassed these skills, whether they're like technical, whether they're sales or whatever, but they're like, hey, I'm tired of like working in that little box that you described, or like working on that slow moving ship. I want to be able to move faster and innovate and create solutions to problems. What advice would you give people if they're trying to take their current skills and transition into a tech startup or a tech role? What would you recommend for those people?
One, I would identify what drives you, where your passions lie. And I always am a firm believer of dreaming, right? Dreaming up your next move. What moves you? What helps you get out of bed every morning in terms of the work that you want to do? What's going to motivate you? Things that motivate you. And the skills that you have now, what could you do with those? And then also like leaning on a network of people that you've come to know, right, over the years. Having sit downs with them and talking to them about, if they've made a transition, what made it easy or hard for them? Like, how did they decide on which, field to land in based upon their skill set? Supportive community, I think, is big. And I encourage that every step of the way, because it's not going to be easy. And there's always a little bit of fear. But the biggest killer of a dream is fear, kind of settling into what's comfortable and normal to you. And, just the inability to just make a move when good opportunities kind of present themselves. So, and do your research. In this tech space, oh my gosh, the opportunities are abound in terms of how skills can be transferable. It is wild. I've also seen positions created for people because of the experience and skill set they bring to the table. And so I would say research, lean on a network, and, just decide what it is that drives you and what kind of work you really want to do at the end of the day.
I know you've only been in your current role for like 5.5 months, but in your experience, what opportunities are out there at tech startups? We're most familiar with like the software engineering or the computer programmer, but you can speak to those roles, but are there other roles out there, and maybe they don't require coding, but are there other roles at a tech startup that people should be aware of?
Yeah, SDRs, sales development representatives, they actually help to field and qualify opportunities for the, outside, if you will, sales folks, right? And they help with many projects to kind of get to that place of qualifying opportunities and finding out which vertical markets are in the best interest of the sales folks to go after and the organization as a whole. You've got sales engineers, folks that work hand in hand with product, and then also in between that and with sales, right? Forward facing with clients and walking with the salesperson through a sales process, oftentimes demoing the technology, right? And helping to fill the bridge between sales, the client, and product and engineering, right? To be able to deliver, a solution that works for all. You have marketing, product marketing. You can get really granular, right? And then of course you have C-suite positions, be it a CRO, CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Revenue Officer, these vice presidents of sales. These are all roles chief technology officers. I would, there are opportunities more than I can name, in roles. Like it's always nice as I spend my time on LinkedIn. I'm in there at least 3 times a day, and I literally have it scheduled on my calendar, right? To see like all of these roles I had never heard of prior to coming to this space. I was like, oh, okay, chief information officer, and CRO is fairly new to me too, right? So it's always interesting to see the multitude of opportunities that are out there for folks. They seem to be limitless.
No, that's an awesome answer, Brandi. I myself, I'm an academic. I'm not very well versed in the business side of things, but I am a fan of lifelong learning. And thank you for pushing for that, for challenging people to learn something that might be out of their scope at the moment. And all these positions that Brandi mentioned, they're accessible whether or not you get a STEM degree or not. It just depends on your tenacity and the steps that Brandi mentioned so far. But now I'd like to transition to day in the life as a senior vice president. And I know this might be different, very different from your legacy company experience, but talk through us a day in the life as a SVP at GigWage.
So basically it comes down to a few things in this moment in time, right? As I'm a newer employee to the organization. It's a matter of researching and sourcing potential partners for us, because my role, I basically sit in between our SMB, that's that small to medium business channel, and our enterprise channel. Through the work that I do in researching, aligning, vetting, and nurturing of those partnership opportunities is to provide overall growth to the organization, and by way of receiving leads from our partners, right? To help the organization grow from a client side, and then also from an independent contractor side, because we do have a B to B to C model. And so a lot of that is sourcing and building out a pipeline, right? So even though I'm not technically a salesperson or a bag carrying salesperson, I still get that injection of a sales cycle by what I do, and I get to help add to the bottom line of the organization, just like my counterparts do on the SMB and enterprise side, which is pretty darn dope. Because I'll never not be a salesperson at heart. So it's sourcing of new opportunities. It's also a matter of working with marketing to put together, we're in the process of building out our gig wage partnership program. There wasn't one prior to my arrival. So it's been really fun. And just prior to this call, in fact, I was on with marketing to kind of talk through some initiatives and active projects that we're working on to help build out that partnership program. It includes a lot of dials. I'm still dialing for dollars, or I call it pay time. Those activities of dialing to get people on the phone, to get them, interested in having a conversation about partnering with us. Emails, in-mails, it does now include posting things on social, right? The gift and the curse that social media is, it's also an amazing way to amass new business. And I've learned that firsthand over the years. Also, I am still in that learning phase. So, there are touch points with our product team and my counterparts on the small, medium business and enterprise side as we work many times on deals together, creating AMP docs that we use to kind of bring everyone together when we are managing very large deals, because some of my top of funnel stuff is relatively large in terms of opportunities that are baking right now that I'm super excited about. And so that requires a all hands on deck moment. So there's a lot of communication around that. And then also sourcing new associations that we can align ourselves with. And, additional partnerships, like I said, that we can kind of, bring into the fold for the sake of, leveraging or amplifying the gig wage brand and bringing on new clients as well.
Are there any skills that helped you prepare in that role as a senior vice president at GigWage?
I think it's been the many years of experience that I had in my previous companies. Like, I'm still in payroll, which has been the focus for me the last 17 years. And so, a lot of the experiences that I had in knowledge of payroll and payroll tax processing and time and attendance, technology, even as I think back to my days in medical sales, technology and science were right in the middle of all of that we did. We manufactured and distributed insulin pumps for type 1 and type 2 diabetics that would administer insulin to them automatically. And it was a device that you attached in a cannula underneath the skin. And so all of that was powered by technology. I get into payroll, it's powered by technology and payroll tax processing. So all of those experiences combined and having the opportunity to move into leadership roles along the way, guide, train, and mentor sales representatives, having my hand a little bit in operations and implementation as well, executive leadership. All of those things, I think, were all a precursor for today. And mind you, in my mind, I thought the last company that I worked for, I would retire from. Even though every now and again, I'd have this urge and this feeling that there was something more out there that I was in search of, but really couldn't figure out what it was until it presented itself. And it did help that I had amassed a network of people who had done business with me. And of course, they chatter amongst one another. Our CEO was very aware of, my skill set, having worked with me on various projects throughout the years, and, knew I was suited for this opportunity because it's similar to what I had just left. And then also just making sure that I had positioned myself as an expert in this space, and then making myself present and visible to others, right? And having experiences and exchanges with them that would send the message, right? That, I was one to watch or one to, go to with any kind of questions, that I had the answers and the ability to assist wherever possible.
So I'm just curious about like the partnerships, because so in my mind, GigWage, is that like an app or software that, like, let's say I have like a I don't know, let's say I have like a public speaking or some kind of software engineering service that I freelance. Would I just like download the app and I pay like a monthly fee for it? And so is that kind of how it works?
So there is no subscription fee, if you will, right?
Okay.
So that for many reasons is not necessarily our model right now, but for the contractor that works with a company like Andrew's puppy grooming organization, right? And I am a groomer. I want to be able to receive my pay instantly, Andrew. You're currently paying me through PayPal, and it takes several days before I can receive my pay sometimes, for whatever reason. I then go to you and ask you, hey, have you heard of this company called GigWage? They offer instant payments. And by the way, I worked a gig prior to this, and I used to get paid instantly through that other company. Prompting you then to contact GigWage to sign up for our services, because I'm a valuable asset. You can't find another groomer as good as I am. And so you want to retain me as an independent contractor. And so you don't want to lose me. So you want to give in to my request to be able to find a solution that pays me instantly, and you contact GigWage. You sign up for our services, we set up an account for you, and, by mere invitation to a contractor via email, with just the name and an email account, you can invite them to log into and sign up on our platform so that they can be paid through GigWage.
Awesome. So it's B2B. I thought it was like B2C. So
It's
that's
B to
amazing.
B to C, actually. So B to B to C. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we've got the business and a consumer side working for us all in one. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So you're working a lot of your time right now is spent on like developing those partnership with organizations that hire a lot of contractors. I got you. Okay.
Exactly. So that the verticals can be like PEOs, professional employer organizations, payroll companies, CPAs that do business accounting, right? And so when they're doing the business accounting, they're aware of their clients and if they have any independent contractors. They may not have the ability to pay those contractors or even manage the payroll for them. So they'll send us that business so that we can handle it for them. Brokerage firms, they have, real estate brokers are typically all paid 1099, appraisers, logistics companies, drivers, restaurant delivery drivers, all of those folks. Anyone would be hard pressed. I guess this is the best way to say it. Anyone would be hard pressed to go into any organization or company and there's not a single contractor somewhere in the mix, be it on a technology or development side or Peggy at the front desk working temporarily. Like there is at least a independent contractor, freelancer, or gig worker somewhere within every company.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thanks for going into detail about that. I was just curious for myself, but that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, it really shows the value of what you guys are doing. So I appreciate you explaining that.
Yeah.
So as such a talented senior vice president as yourself with so much history, so much work experience, how much could you demand as a tech startup, as a senior vice president of a tech startup? So if you could talk, and I'll be respectful. I know you
Yeah.
may want to talk in more general terms. If you just speak in general in terms of like, hey, what's kind of like the pay for a senior vice president or a C-suite executive or whatever. And then also not only the pay, but are there any opportunities for additional benefits like stock options or whatever the case may be?
And again, here we have a situation where depending on, one company's in the next, it's all over the place in terms of potential earning potential. What I can say is that, I have seen organizations that start folks off at this level at, anywhere between a buck 75. I'm saying a buck 75, but I mean 175,000 to as high as 250 on base, right? And then building in, some commission structures along the way, right? That true up to sometimes, I know a couple of folks in, 450, half a mil, depending on how long they've been with that organization at some fintechs where they can amass that much, right? And then bonus opportunities on top of that, if they go above and beyond, and various projects that they may work on, special projects outside of the immediate scope of what they do, or additional business they can bring to the organization. There'll be little bumps or bonuses for that. Sometimes that look like anywhere between 20,000 to six figures. It just depends on how big the project is. There's also, and I am a huge proponent and have been probably for the last 10 years when I wised up, that it really isn't always about the comp package and the money. When you get to be my age and you've been in sales as long as I have, and if you've had a really good career, you will make decisions where your money can work for you over time by making investments, expanding your stock portfolio, maybe getting into some things like real estate. Like you always want to make the money work for you. That's a whole nother subject matter or topic that I can go on for days. But stock options, having equity in a company, especially in this space, when you work for a company that really has something, right, and it's going to take off, is always a good move to ask for or think about it before you take on a job. Do they offer any kind of stock option or equity play? Is there an equity play in here somewhere? Because again, you're talking about long-term, earnings through those types of packages. Not to say that the green doesn't make sense. I mean, we want to know about the money too. We want to secure the bag, but also in securing the bag means, what type of equity play is involved and how does it benefit you during your time there and long term.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, if you get the right equity play with a company like Gig Wage, I mean, you're talking about securing the bag that y'all get that $1 billion evaluation, that's gonna be a nice bag you got over there, Brandi. And I mean, Craig gonna be sitting nice too. So
Just rain on me. Just rain all over me.
nice. Hey, quick question, quick follow up question before I let Eli take over with the next question. So the equity play, is that something that not only executives have, but like a software engineer might have that opportunity at a tech startup, or like somebody in a sales role at a tech startup? Are they going to have that same opportunity for equity in a tech startup?
I mean, that's what I have seen, unaware of, because again, this is my first stint, right? And I don't know that I have, I don't have insights until like my colleagues or peers, what their comp packages look like. But I would say based upon what I know and what the company has been forthcoming about in terms of information when we started talking about, equity here. I think we had a call maybe like 3 or 4 months ago. It involved sales. It involved product and engineering. So I would say for us, yes. I feel like Craig absolutely is the type of CEO and founder that wants to take care of his people. I also think he is keenly aware of what he is on the brink of in terms of what this organization is going to be. And so he set it up that we can all win. When Gig Wage wins, we all win. I just remember asking him when I came here, please don't turn around and sell this puppy in like 3 years. I want to have some fun before I retire. Like I want to be here a while. I want to do some things. Please don't, because he gets offers, of course. The monsters in our space, of course, have come knocking and wanted to know, was he interested in, turning over the keys, I guess you could say. And that's a no for now. So,
well, kudos to him.
Yeah.
Kudos to him. No, and thank you, Brandi, for defining all these terms, especially the financial terms, because I find that even myself, financial literacy and education is highly deficient in our communities, and especially younger people. And so the more we can expose them to these terms, the better.
Yeah, and that's something that I've talked to, and as I mentor other young people who are now out in the working world, like I can go on and on. When I was growing up, you didn't talk about money. That was taboo. Mm-hmm. Right. We just never had those conversations. Now, I do recall like my grandmother being very direct and always telling me like, as a woman, even when you're married, you should have your own set aside. What if one day your husband decides he doesn't want to be married anymore? You need to be able to care for you and your kids. Like, even though she was married for like 50 plus years and had only been married to my grandfather, but they wanted me to go out into the world and create a life for myself where I could be self-sufficient, right? And be a contributor to society. But there was absolutely no conversation about what happens when I finally secure the bag. What am I to do with this money? Because I tell you, the first sizable check that came my way, one, I thought I was going to need a defibrillator because it was so big, and I'm in my early 20s. And I'm thinking these people have made a grave mistake, and this is the days of when they would give you your direct deposit voucher in the office. You pick it up on Friday. Like I'm looking at it and inching my way out the door before someone stops me and tell me they've made a payroll error. Because I'm like, they really paid up. This is what they said they would do, and they did it. And I'm running to my car, thinking about how quickly I can make it to Michigan Avenue to the Chanel shop, right? So you do that for so many years. And then you think about, I've blown a lot of money on handbags, which will always be near and dear to my heart. But I need to plan for the future. And I think that we need to have more conversations for people, particularly in this space. Because, when you were growing up, to be wealthy or have an amazing life, you thought you needed to be an athlete, a professional athlete, or an attorney, or a doctor. At least I did, and where I came from, right? I know people in this field who, what they make, most doctors and attorneys don't see that kind of money in their careers, or at least for the first several years. Because once you get out of law school and med school, you got debt. You're saddled with debt. Fintech is so amazing because it's the one space where you can create, go to market, and start building momentum like that. It's crazy. And then that's when the money starts rolling in. And I know a lot of CEOs will hear that and be like, lady, I've been humping for 5, 6 years. It doesn't happen that quickly, but I think you get my drift, like how quickly you can start to kind of see some successes as it's tied to earnings, right, in this field. So, that's just my little insights. I really do believe that there needs to be some education, no differently than we would offer around athletes who secure contracts right out of college or high school, and they have millions and have no idea what to do with it. But they're getting timepieces. They're at Hublot. Like, they're doing all sorts of things, buying yachts and stuff when they've not played their first game yet. Like, it's just that kind of stuff that I feel like also needs to happen here in this space and for our people when it comes to just planning for the future and respecting the money that they make.
No, that's great advice, and I feel like some of those conversations are starting to happen in public more. Like, you have podcasts like Earn Your Leisure and the Come Up series. I've been watching some of those podcasts where they actually encourage people not only to make a lot of money, but how to invest and save that money, whether it's real estate or stocks, like you said. I mean, we all have our situations where we're young and learning, I don't know if you're buying a bunch of Louis or what. I'm not going to make you name drop the bags you got in your closet. But, I mean, we all kind of, as a younger age, we kind of have our vices or whatever the case may be. But I think it's great that our cultures are having these conversations now. In terms of, like, professional development, let's kind of talk there, because you have a ton of experience with, like, networking and then working your way up the corporate ladder. What advice can you give people for how to network or how to improve their network or expand their network? What is some advice you can provide for people?
Put yourself out there, first and foremost. Like, those opportunities aren't always going to come to you. I've met and have employed over the years sales folks that would get into a room and all of a sudden they make themselves so small. And that was always pretty interesting to me. Because typically we're extroverts as salespeople. So you definitely want to put yourself out there. You want to do everything. And here we live in an age where you can connect with someone with just a few keystrokes, right? That is where the magic really happens. Like, for instance, for me, I did not have a lot of action on LinkedIn prior to, didn't even have a profile pic when I came to Gig Wage. And trust me, it was a whole conversation for about 48 hours. My CEO was like, I am going to stop all communications with you until you put up a profile pic on LinkedIn. Like, I'm going to need you to do that before anything else happens. So, one, visibility, right? And always being on top of communications, right? As they come through those various platforms, be it Twitter or LinkedIn or even Facebook. And growing your network, because you never know who knows who can walk you into what situation. My network alone in 5.5 months has grown like by 42%. Like, that thing was on idle for like years prior to coming to Gig Wage. Now it is on fuego. And I followed the lead of my CEO, our chief strategy officer, our chief of staff. These are all people who have been in this space for a long time, and they have made some extraordinary connections. So I oftentimes see, well, who did Craig like? Or whose profile was that Ethan, made a comment on? I'm immediately clawing to kind of like connect with that person too. So I would say put yourself out there, be visible, and pay attention. Who's moving and shaking in your area of expertise, right? And making things happen. And they don't necessarily have to look like us. A lot of the help that I've gotten over the years came from Anglo-Caucasian people who gave me a chance, because hell, there was none of us at the top of the line, right? In that moment, you're talking almost 20 years ago, that could give me a helping hand and have me in meetings where there were a room full of 10 middle-aged white males doing big business. And I'm sitting there like, how did I get here? And why does this man have me in this meeting? But it was because he saw something in me and afforded me the opportunity to grow. So that's why I say it's very important to be cognizant of who's around you, who you can connect yourself with, and who can help you as long as you've got the fire and the desire to do it, right? To help elevate your career path, if that's what you so choose to do.
Awesome. So that's great. You went from not having a LinkedIn profile to kind of mastering the game real quick within these 5.5 months, or learning the game real quick. And I'm glad you pointed out that, not everybody is going to look like you that you want to connect with. Because I think about my career, and the three people that helped me the most in my career are all middle-aged white guys. And I mean, that, like you said, just to echo your statements, they saw something in me.
Yeah.
So I'll let Eli take it away.
But now we want to be the ones, right, to pay it
Yeah.
forward
And that's why we're
and
here.
then extend our arms back, right, to
Each one
help.
teach one.
So, absolutely. Nothing gives me greater joy when one of my former sales reps sends me a note, or some even call, even the ones that I've had to let go over the years, right? For various reasons, that will say, I appreciate the time and the energy and the effort that you gave me, or my life is this now because you gave me a chance. Yes, the paycheck is good. Yes, the lifestyle is amazing, but it's those moments that I think help to shape my legacy, right? That is what legacy really means to me. When you can have an impact and shape the lives of others, they continue to bloom when you're far gone. So, my apologies, Eli, you were saying.
No doubt. No, no, no. I'm just gonna say, pay it forward. Paying it forward. That's what we're all about here. And thank you for sharing that. And just to reiterate what y'all were talking about, it's important to always be kind to everyone, because you never know who is gonna have your back, or whose help you're gonna need, and also when you're gonna need to be a help for someone else. So I'm
Yep.
glad you brought those points up. Now, to follow up on that, are there any other tips to how to network more effectively, not just using LinkedIn, but perhaps how to conversate with people, how to, perhaps if you're in your conference, how to appropriately approach people and ask questions and make those connections?
Sometimes it's just, you'll find yourself in situations where people will be warm, welcoming, and super inviting, right? So they want to pull you in, they want to know who you are and what you do. And you might find yourself in some situations where, the thermostat in the room is hitting you at a cool 55 degrees or so, right? Everyone's doing this when you walk by. Like I've seen and been there and done it all. I think the first thing to do is just to put yourself out there. And sometimes people just need an icebreaker. You don't necessarily have to pounce on them and start talking business straight away. Quite frankly, I don't think that really works anywho, unless someone's really approaching you and saying, hey, I've seen gig wage. We need to pay contractors more frequently. But that doesn't always happen. So it's approaching others, building a rapport, and be genuine. Like, I honestly feel like a salesperson who isn't genuine in their actions and desires to really be of service and help someone else, that can be snuffed out straight away, just by way of their approach. So I would always say, use to thine own self be true, right? And be genuine in the way in which you dial up and engage with people. And then just, kind of figure out, like, what are the sore spots for them? How can you help by way of the solution that you're offering? And sometimes maybe it's not a fit, but wait a second. There's a solution that they need that we don't offer, but I have a contact that can be of service to them. So I don't walk away from those opportunities because, oh, darn it, we can't get the business. I want to dive in and see who in my network might be of service to this potential, what I thought may have been a possibility or a prospective partner or client, but to be of service to them in other ways. And I think that goes a long way. And then you become the person when that person is engaging with someone else that says, oh my gosh, I am going to lose Andrew and Eli. They've driven for me for the last 6 months, but they don't like the pay frequency that we offer. And they don't like that I can't provide them with the proof of income report as quickly as they need it when they want to go out and obtain a mortgage. They're fine. I think they're going to leave me. then the person that I was trying to get business from and couldn't, and I sent them elsewhere, that person now has an opportunity or a lead they can send to me. So it's like this event. You often 7 degrees of separation is a real thing too, especially in the world that I come from when you're talking about payroll. So that's why it becomes really important to ensure you're leaving a lasting impression that is one that is positive, and that you're offering more of your resource, even when you can't get a business directly.
Awesome. Hey, so I got one more professional development question, but before I ask it, how much time do you have? Because I know we said 4:30, but we
Yeah.
started late. Do you have a little bit, maybe like 15 minutes after? So maybe like
Yeah.
4:45?
Yeah. That'll work for
Okay,
me.
awesome. All right, perfect. Thanks, Brandy. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
So my last question is another money question. So when you're having that initial discussion with Craig, when Craig J. Lewis calls you, he's like, "Yo, Brandy, you got to be on my team."
That is so funny.
Um, he's like, "You perfect. You really gonna help us blow up, right?" What is kind of the discussion in terms of like negotiating a salary? Like what tips and advice can you give to people when they're like, "Hey, XYZ company wants you to join them as whatever role, but they want to pay this amount of money." And it could be market rate, but maybe you feel like you're worth more. What tips and advice can you provide for people for like how to negotiate their salary like you did with or like I'm assuming you did with Craig J. Lewis?
So let me just say this. He called at the right time. I had some growing frustrations where I was. And let's just say I gave him the peer industry discount. So this is an introductory
I
rate, if
got
you
you. I
will.
got you.
And in a lot of sales, like people in my position or in sales will find themselves in that situation. And it's not the first time. Like I went from bringing in my mid 30s anywhere between 325 to 450. At that time, that's a whole lot of money to a young person. But my first payroll job, because I was starting from scratch, I was no longer in med sales, my earnings, they declined. But I didn't like spaz out about it because I know my potential, I know my skill set, I know the drive that I have, and I was going to make that up along the way. Mind you, it would take a couple of years to get there, but I wasn't so worried about that. And the same thing here. Like he asked me for a number, I told him what I needed, he delivered on that. There's just a component of the package that is still like up in the air. But here's what the reason why I didn't press that right now is because one, I was moving into a new industry. While I knew I would catch up, I did, in my mind I said it was going to take 90 days. It's about 6 months to be honest, right? From where I sit. And knowing this is a startup, he's got more hiring to do. I know my potential. And so there are deals that are at the top of the funnel, meaning deals that are ready to close soon. Once I see that those opportunities are at about 95% to close, I'll double back to him and say, this is the component that I'm looking for to be added to the package. And I've had that conversation with him. And he's not batted an eyelash. He honestly feels, I know through and through that he will make good on that discussion. So I'm not worried. And I had some of that was going on in my last job too. There was a hiccup with commissions. And I was so busy selling and getting things done and doing okay that $21,000 that I had missed out on, I wasn't hard pressed for it, but it took them 13 months to reconcile that before I got the money. But it eventually came. But if you're on your grind and doing what you need to do, you don't get caught up in those things so much. And if you have been smart with your money and earnings over the years and put it in the right places and saved like you needed to, that's why I said I'm not so hard pressed. But as we near the beginning of the new year, he's asked me to put together an all-inclusive package and let's go from there. So I'm not concerned, and I think the kid will be all right.
Nice,
So
nice, nice, nice. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I mean I think some people maybe they accepted an offer, maybe they were happy with it, but maybe they felt like they should get more. I think
mhm.
just your comments hearing about like, hey, show your value to your supervisors, and then you can
Yeah.
double back and have those conversations with them. One quick
Yeah.
follow up question: how do you typically gauge like so when you go back to Craig and you say, hey, I've done X, Y, and Z, we've got so many partnerships. How do you pick that number that you think that you're going after now? Is that just a matter of talking to your peers that are in similar roles in the same industry, or how do you figure out like ballpark range? Is it glassdoor.com or what?
So I call it a bell curve, and that's probably just an ancient term, but it's a matter of just kind of like looking at the industry at a whole, the role that you're in, and the market that you're in, right? In determining what that role typically garners in terms of a compensation package, right? So I do that. It's a matter of talking to some of my peers who are in similar roles at other companies. I also take a look at, I used to have a brag book when I was in sales. And Margaret Kowalczyk, who was my first mentor in sales, told me that that would be key for me when I was going into negotiations for any job. And I held on to it. I still have it. It's in my garage. But I do keep track of projects that I worked on over the years. In this instance, I'll look at what's in the funnel, what's projected to close in the funnel. And I'll kind of use that number to, and along with the research that I've done, that bell curve, and also what, my peers are garnering in the market. And we'll come back with something that I feel is fair to me and the organization. Like and this is going to sound crazy, but I always want to kind of take into account and care for the company too, because it's the company that allows me to make a living. And so just creating a package that I feel like is fair for me and the organization is key. And the fact that I've known Craig for as long as I have, too, some of that kind of plays into it. But if I'm going into an organization, I have no previous knowledge of the CEO, their character, how hard they work or don't, how they treat their people or don't. I'm then going to use my last situation that I was in, my earnings, any projects that I successfully fulfilled, and the revenue that the company generated as a result of that, and probably pad by 10, 15, 20% going in. I mean, it's a start. So that's kind of how I manage situations in the and I have friends, right? I've got a friend that she works for the global brand. They manufacture and distribute hearing aids all over the world. And she's in executive leadership. I have seen her climb over the last like 15 years. And every time someone tries to poach her from one department within her organization, she calls me up right away. Like, how should I approach this situation? And we literally chop it up about like what things she should ask for, how much she should ask for in compensation. We talk about projects that she's worked on that have had a successful yield for the company, and kind of talk about the reviews she's received from previous management. And it helps her navigate those conversations. And to this day, I think to myself, I was like, she comes to me. That's pretty dope. I must know what I'm talking about. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to continue to ride this wave because you've helped me out immensely. You've helped my pocketbook. So yeah, that's just kind of a few things that I look at. My circumstances are a little different than most, but yeah, I kind of take a look at the past work that I've done, work that I'm currently doing, what I earned previously, what the market yields for the position, and use all of that to come to the table when it comes to negotiating a package.
Thanks for sharing. Salary negotiations is seldom heard, but it's critical,
And it can be
right?
tough. People are really weird about talking about money.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to in the home, we never talked about money. I think we carry some of that with us into adulthood. But when you get to the table, one thing you have to remember is like who you are and what you bring to the opportunity, what skills and experience, know-how, and how you produce, and how that's helped the company along or will help the company along. and you need to kind of fight for yourself in some instances.
I think, and you've already mentioned it, you've been, I guess, one of one or one of the only few women of color in your space where you've been at multiple times throughout your career. What are some of the challenges that you've had to face, and how did you overcome those? I mean, we hear about like microaggressions and
Oh yeah,
people
it's
trying to say,
real.
"Can I touch your hair?"
Oh
or whatever the
yeah.
case may be. So, what are those challenges that you've had to deal with, and how did you kind of overcome that?
Yeah, in the very beginning, we're talking about the beginning of my days in payroll. And so we'll start at like what, 2002. I was, people that looked like me in sales and payroll sales just wasn't a thing. Like ADP at that point was cranking out 6 foot tall Amazon blonde, blue hair chicks who had legs coming out of their necks, right? Fresh out of college, and that's who they were sending out into the world to sell payroll. So I was up against that, right? And it became evident to me straight away. And so I knew in that moment, one, the physicality, this is what I was given. So this is what it was going to be. But I made it work for me in medical sales where there weren't many of me around. I can make it work here too in payroll. And so I just made sure that I was well versed in what I was doing. Yes, I've had the comments of, oh my goodness, I did a lot. I became the face of my last organization pretty early on. And so conferences, I go out and have to do presentations. I was on the road a lot, and yeah, you'll finish a presentation and you killed it. You walk off the stage, people immediately want to go over to your booth and have a chat. And how many times, more times than I can count, would I be faced with, that was an amazing presentation. Oh my gosh, you're so articulate. Um, or, oh my goodness, you're so pretty. Well, I'm here to talk payroll, not really about my looks. But the first couple times it happens, it takes you by surprise, and you're young, right? So you don't necessarily know how to navigate it. And the best thing you can do in that moment, you feel, is to rebound, is just to move on to the next piece of the conversation about the business. But after it happens a couple of times, or someone calls you sweetie, because I got a double-edged sword. I'm a woman and I'm a woman of color. And misogyny is real. And so, I'd have people, hey, sweetie, when they talk to me. I've learned to set boundaries. My government name, sir, is Brandi. You're more than welcome to call me that, but I don't answer to sweetie. Or I was in a meeting with my CEO, my former CEO. Now he's a Minnesota farm and boy raised white male. We'd go to a meeting. I had the entire time, we're talking as a group, there were about 8 of us in a room. Every time there was a question for us, I might as well have been Casper the Ghost, like as if I was not even there. But my CEO realized that straight away, and he wasn't having it. And so every time this gentleman would ask a question, he said, well, you can direct that to Brandi. Brandi is more than equipped to answer your question. That went on for 2 hours where he just wasn't having it. And he forced the people in that room to stand up and see me, because that's the problem. Sometimes they just feel as if they don't see you. And so they learned real quickly that, one, I knew what I knew, and I had knowledge that they needed in order to move on in terms of the work they needed to do, and they needed our technology to do it. And I was the key stakeholder to that. And my CEO made it clear to them. So having people that will champion for you too in those moments where someone says or done something out of place is always nice to have, but some of us don't have that support, right? And so that's when you learn to stand in your greatness and understand who you are, and that you have something to offer beyond the physical, beyond your circumstances, and you show up and just be the best version of yourself each and every day. Someone's going to catch on to that and set boundaries. And it is okay to tell someone, That makes me quite uncomfortable. That's inappropriate. And oftentimes they'll be so embarrassed. And I've learned to do it in the moment. So I'm not pulling someone aside. If we are in a group of 20 to 25 people, I am in that moment in the most diplomatic way possible, but yet very stern, letting them know how that comment was offensive. Because ignorance also lies beneath the surface or at the top of the surface for a lot of people. So they don't know that it's inappropriate to ask a woman of color, may I touch your hair? So there's some education that you have to provide in the moment. Or sometimes you just have to stand up for yourself and let them figure it out. People should have a responsibility to educate themselves on what's appropriate and inappropriate when interacting with people who are not the same as them. I kind of got away from that. It's not my job to teach the entire race of Anglo people what is appropriate and what is not. I would ask all of you to do the work, beloved, to do the work.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Because I mean, and the other thing, I appreciate that you're like advocating for people to stand up and speak up for themselves and not worry about what other people are going to say or think about you, but really know that, hey, you deserve to be where you're at in that space. You're just as talented as anybody else. So,
yeah. And there are things that I feel like Caucasian women don't have to really worry about. Like I remember being much younger, preparing for a conference. I worked in a very traditional space. We dealt with a lot of banking and treasury and stuff like that. So we were always suited, males and females on our team. Of course, at a conference, you have a happy hour in the evening. And I guarantee you that this is going to resonate with someone out there. And being a woman of color, I am shapely. And a pair of jeans on me might look different than they do on my counterpart, Susan. And so I remember like packing days before and being filled with anxiety now that I think about it, because I don't want to, even though I'm just wearing jeans and a shirt, much like everybody else at a cocktail hour, do I show up in the jeans and is it portrayed that I'm looking for some sort of attention when I'm really not? This is the body I've been given. I'm working with it. This is all I got. I'm showing up as me every day. Or how to wear your hair. I had never seen any women of color earlier on in my career that would wear braids or plaits, or it was about wearing straight hair because you don't want to make the people uncomfortable by showing up in its natural state. Because when this isn't blow dried, she likens a poodle. The curls are real. So, I remember having to make those choices. Fast forward, it's 2021. I work at a company that is founded by a man of color. None of that matters to him because it is who we are. And we are reminded in that hour to stand in our greatness, to stand in our melanin, to stand in our hair texture, because when it's all said and done, it's really about the work that we're doing here, the knowledge that we gain, how we get the gig wage message out, and how many lives we touch as a result of it, and propelling this company to the next level. And people will take note of that, is the hope, right, in all of this. So there's some real challenges that I think sometimes women of color, Latino women are faced with. My daughter, who's mixed, she's half Latina as well. Like, these are real conversations. She's 28 years old. She's moving her way through corporate and had all these experiences. And I imagine that I'm not the only one. She's not the only one where we've had these discussions. So yeah, those are some of the experiences, and you work through it. Wisdom, experience, and time help you move past those things. And as you grow older, you become that much more comfortable in your skin. And so those things that were problematic in your mind prior to, or someone else's issue prior to, become less of that as you grow into your own.
We're always asked to be more patient, more gracious, smarter, more strategic. People have no idea. A lot of people have no idea how much we have to put up with, especially women.
Yeah.
But on that note, we would love to talk more in detail, but we're running out of time. However, we do have a deep dive ending question we always like to end each episode. And yes, it is another. So the first hot question was the pay question. The second one is what I'm about to bring up. In the contents of national policy or local policy, whatever is most important for you, what do you feel is the best way to bring more Latinos and Black people into those leadership positions? As you have just witnessed to, you have told us that it's very much lacking.
I think we use the platforms that we have available to us, and that's social media, number one. I think we become examples by being the companies that really carve out a DE and I initiative and stick to it, like go the distance. Challenge it. I mean, even outside of the fact, we're kind of cheating here at Gig Wage with our founder being a young man of color, right? So of course that's at the forefront of his mind. But, our board and other executive leadership who are non-minorities also have raised their hand in acknowledgement in support of. But for some of those larger companies, your Johnsons and Johnson, Procters and Gamble's, your, Google's, your Facebook's, all of those companies, say it and mean it. Say it and mean it. Create real plans and strategies around being able to welcome talent that is of color, Latina, and other ethnicities, right? And women in leadership. I mean, studies have proven when you add us in the mix in a lot of organizations, we over-index in terms of productivity and results. It's just a fact. And so if more heads of companies, I think, understood that and knew that, that's where the change begins. Programs, STEM programs, where you have people in positions who have experienced the working world and have connections. Those of us who are in these positions reach back, lend a hand to those coming up behind you who have sometimes the same career aspirations and give them opportunities. A lot of tech companies want to look at from an engineering perspective. Sometimes they want to be able to hire more experienced engineers so they can get product launched that much more quickly in the marketplace, right? And they'll pay a little bit more to do that. But maybe there's a junior engineer out there who has aspirations to be a senior engineer and then one day a chief technology officer. Someone's got to give them a chance. You've got a young graduate out of college who took business courses, fell in love with the idea of being in sales. Yeah, they're wet behind the ears. They just finished their last round of Infamil yesterday, right? But someone's got to give them a chance. And so I think when you are in positions where you can hire or recommend, do it early and often and let it be long lasting. My biggest fear is that what we've encountered in the last couple of years, particularly where so many travesties have been, brought to light via a mere cell phone and have exploded, and everyone's seen a glimpse of just what's been going on for really hundreds of years, right? That it loses its impact over time. And yeah, everybody's touting about, we're hiring more people of color. It's on our radar. We're galvanizing around this initiative and we're going to get it done. 6 months, a year goes by. People have excuses as to why they can't rise to the occasion and find these hires. Oh, they're so difficult to find. And even for me, I used to say, I really don't know any other, VPs my age, my skin color, or in my next life, I want to come back as a programmer, a female programmer. Like algorithms and all that stuff amaze me. Anytime I run into that's why Afrotech was so big for me. Because I had the opportunity, and they aren't unicorns. Female minority programmers exist. But if you don't have that exposure, how do you ever know? How can you ever be what you never see? It's impossible. So creating platforms where people have an opportunity to understand that there's more ways to build a career for yourself outside of the norm of being a teacher, which is an admirable, position. You are shaping the minds of our future generations. Or, having, a regular 9 to 5 and thinking this is what it is. Tech, sciences, engineering, and math are amazing opportunities. And I feel like more people need to start speaking up. I'm really appreciative of this platform. And I, the best of wishes for you all. And I want you to reach the masses on every episode that you air, and just get more people involved in this initiative, to go into schools perhaps, to kind of speak to career opportunities that are outside of what we're used to hearing and learning about. And that's it. I'll stop there
Oh
because
man,
go
Brandi, you
on.
preaching, girl. I was like, Lord. All right. No, everything you said resonated with me, man. I mean, the more we do this, to be honest, and the more we research potential guests and the more we research programs that are out there, the more me personally, the more I realize like we have the resources we need. It's just a lot of it is, well, we need more help, but a lot of it is like getting everybody together on the same page. So I mean,
Right.
like you said, there are black female programmers, there are black engineers, there's Latino uh, software engineers, and so on. But I think we definitely need more of them, and I think the outreach effort and the marketing of those roles is important. Um, and I can only thank you for coming on the show to like really shed a light on yourself, your CEO, and Gig Wage as a whole, and some of the great things that you're doing. So we really appreciate you for coming on here. You know,
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, and this industry has been really good to me, and just would love to see more of us, all of us,
yep.
joining the ranks.
Eli, did you have anything to add? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, no. You're fine. You're fine, man. So I just wanted to say thank you for bringing up DEI. Yeah, those can very easily be put on the wayside, and so I agree with you that more people should take that seriously. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm sorry, I forgot about the last item, but thank you so much for sharing that with us today. We really appreciate your time, and we hope we can talk to you more about more specific things like salary negotiations. I think that'd be amazing to have a talk with you like that.
I'd
But
be happy.
thank you so much for sharing your story. We always want to highlight voices like yours. Speaking of female coders, we just interviewed one earlier this week. And so
Really?
100% the talent is out there. It
Yeah,
is out there.
yeah,
It takes people that care to look,
yeah,
right? And to
yeah.
recognize their own biases, right? So,
Mhm.
anyway, but I think that's a fantastic place to end. Unless there's anything else you want to plug, Brandy, anything else you want to bring up, talk about?
No, I think that does it for me. And, for any companies and independent contractors out there that are looking for fast, efficient, modern payments, you can always find that at Gig Wage.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, I got one quick question. Is Gig Wage hiring? Are you guys looking for anybody? I mean, maybe we can like promote it or
We
anything.
are actively hiring for a number of roles. In fact, vice president of sales. We're also looking for a VP of marketing. Um, I believe like we will be building out our sales team soon enough. I've heard numbers of we sit at about 35 employees right now or staff members, and I've heard numbers as far as like north of 50 by the start of the year. So we will have additional job postings out soon enough, I imagine, especially as we look to kind of march into Series B. Part of that is going to be, with a lot of deals that we have going from a partnership standpoint, new business on the enterprise side and small SMB side, like there will be a need for additional talent. So, for anyone, either operations, product, development, sales, marketing, you should definitely go to www.gigwage.com. And, we're also on social, LinkedIn, and we actively post job opportunities there as well.
Awesome. Hey, one quick comment. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Can we get you to come back on and do like a woman panel with the software engineer that we Eli mentioned, Nicole Young. She's a freelancer, by the way, so maybe she'll be adopting gig wage. But we would love to
Okay.
have maybe you, Nicole, and maybe two others come on and do a woman panel.
I would love
There's
that.
there's there's that cross pollination you were talking about in action right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't hold it against me if I'm spitting, I'm hanging on her every word. Because I'm telling you, like, I am just all in when it comes to women developers. I think it's the coolest thing ever. So yeah, I'd be honored to return for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, I'll let you take it away, Eli. I'm gonna stop talking. Go ahead.
All right, no worries, my man. It's all good. Yeah. So to close, that this has been a wonderful conversation with Brandi Utria, Senior Vice President at Gig Wage, and this has been Custom Journeys. And I have been Eliseo Iglesias with my co-host Andrew Baines. Thanks for listening. We're out of here.
We're out of here.